Okay, just to review, we're going to review negative exponents, and in addition, that will help us review all the other exponent rules as well. So when you look at this first example, you have negative exponents, which we do not like. When you have a negative exponent, it's going to move it to the opposite position. So this is negative, it's going to come down. This one that was down and had a negative exponent is going to come up. So when you do that, you're going to get y to the 6th over x to the 3rd. And these are different bases, so there's nothing more you can do to make that more simplified. That is the best you got there. So that problem is done. When you have a whole parenthesis raised to a negative power, that moves the whole parenthesis to the bottom. So what happens here is you're going to get 1 over, because this was in the top, and then it's going to be 3x to the negative 4th power, and now it's being raised to the 2nd power, so this becomes a positive 2. Now we're going to actually work on squaring everything inside the parentheses, which would give you 3 squared would be 9. X to the negative 4th would be x to the negative 8th, because you have x to the negative 4th and another x to the negative 4th, which would be negative 8. And then you're looking at this thinking, I have another negative exponent, I need to get rid of that. And so I'm only moving what's being raised to the negative 8, and that's just the x. There are no parentheses around the 9 and the x, so just the x is moving. Now that's a positive 8, and the 9 stays in the denominator because it was not raised to the negative 8. There are actually a couple ways you could do this problem. That's not the only way. So as long as you get the same answer as me, you're fine. But sometimes the steps in the middle can be a little bit different. If you look at number 3, I would clean up the inside first, because on the inside I have 2 x's and I can make that better. This negative 5 that was in the numerator would move down to the denominator. Now the 3 would stay where it is because it's not being raised to a negative exponent. The 4 would stay, the x to the 6th would stay, but this x to the 5th comes down and now it's positive. And then I'm cleaning up the inside still, so I can change this x to the 6th times x to the 5th. I have 6 x's, 5 more make 11. Now, don't forget, you're raising this whole thing to the 3rd power. So that means everything in the parenthesis gets raised to the 3rd power. The coefficient does mean just 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. 4, we do the same thing. 4 cubed is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. And then x to the 11th times x to the 11th times x to the 11th would be x to the 33rd. All right, so that is an awesome problem. Lots going on, lots of great review in just that one problem. All right, so here are 3 more problems. Again, when we have a fraction being raised to a negative exponent, we're going to flip that fraction to get rid of the negative exponent. It's going to reverse the order of everything in the parentheses. And you certainly can put y over 1. And now that's raised to the 4th. But that is the same thing as y. And y raised to the 4th power, you don't need those parentheses. It would just be y to the 4th. In number 5, we're only moving those variables that have negative exponents. So this one has to move, and this one has to move. So y squared stays. Y to the 8th comes up, x to the 7th stays, and x to the 5th comes down. Now I have 2 y's and 8 y's, 10 altogether when you are multiplying. 2 and plus 8 give you 10. And down here you have 7 x's and 5 more make 12. 7 plus 5 is 12. These have different variables, so that's the best we can do with that problem. Again, this whole thing is being raised to a negative, So we're going to force that whole thing into the denominator. And now this is a positive 3. I love this because of the negative 2. That's not an exponent, so it doesn't move. The negative 2 is a coefficient. So negative 2, and you're just going to cube it now because it is in those parentheses, which will give you negative 8, because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then x to the 5th cubed, x to the 5th times x to the 5th times x to the 5th would be x to the 15th. And that's the best you can do on that problem. Nothing else to be done.